So the barriers to entry to becoming a painter are very little. All you need is a bucket and a paintbrush. How do you decide when you come across a painter whether or not that's all the experience they have?
You can check references, see how long that person's been in business.
What are the perils of hiring someone who's just a college painter, may or may not be around, may or not be able to be found in the next week or two?
Well, if there's a problem with the job, they may not be there to back it up. They may not have the proper insurance, so if they damage something on your property, or even if they hurt themselves, you may find yourself liable for their damages or injuries. That's where it's important to make sure that your contractor has got all the necessary insurance.
You do that as part of the bid process?
Yes.
What does a customer ask for specifically when they're asking for your insurance information?
If they have general liability insurance, if the contractor uses employees, if that employee is covered by workman's comp as required by Illinois law, if that contractor uses a subcontractor, if that subcontractor is covered by workers' comp, or his employees are covered by workers' comp. And some of the painters out there use all subcontractors and may or may not be covered. When you hire Martin's Painting and Decorating, you typically get one of the Martins on the job and not a subcontractor.
So if a painter doesn't have the requisite insurance, is that a reason to be concerned?
We think so, because it doesn't take but a small accident to turn into quite an ordeal. Customer drops a ladder on a car, puts it through a window, if it falls off and breaks his leg.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about the ladder falling on the car. I guess there are many ways to have an accident besides getting hurt.
If the painter's, yes, if the painter's spraying, he could overspray the neighbor's car, or the neighborhood cars for that matter.
Yeah, there are many perils.
It's something that most people don't think of, but it's a consideration when hiring. It may not be worth saving $100 on a non-insured painter.
So if you're going to hire a painter, how should you go about choosing a painter?
Well, most people choose a painter either going through the phone book and calling 2 or 3 or 4 painters to do a bid. Sometimes they have to hire or call 4 or 5 painters to get 2 or 3 bids, because a lot of times painters don't return calls. And then they do sort of an interview with the prospective painter when he's doing the proposal. And a lot of times it comes down to price and how well they like the estimator or the person who does the proposal. That's one way. And the other way, a lot of times, is just recommendations from friends or coworkers. And when the customer uses that way, a lot of times they don't even get a competing bid, because their neighbor might tell them that they had a good price and a good experience from a particular painter. And a lot of times that's good enough.
Would you say there's something people should look for when hiring a painter? Because it's not hard to say that you're a painter.
Very easy to say you're a painter. Our recommendation is to look at how long that painter's been in business. If that painter has all the necessary insurance. Now, in Illinois, there's no certification or license, so that doesn't apply. You want to look at their history as far as maybe do some reference checks, make sure they get their jobs done on time and on budget. If a painter says it's going to take 3 days to do a job and it takes 5, and there's no explanation for that, that might be something you want to look at. Does the painter show up on time when he's supposed to be at a job? Things like that.
So, when you hire a painter, it's not always the person that you talk to who comes to your house to do the painting. What kinds of questions should you ask about the people who are actually going to be in your house, especially if they're there when you're not home? When, you know, that's where your valuables are. You got to be able to trust the person.
Absolutely. And that's a good question, because there's a lot of people out there that think all painters are a certain type person, whether it be good or bad. And just like any job, where there's a group of people, you have all different kinds of people. But I know that if I was hiring somebody to be in my house, I'd want to make sure that they were trustworthy and didn't have a history of any kind of problems, or just because the contractor may be trustworthy, it's about the people that are going to be in your house. So to me, that's a pretty big consideration. And the easiest way is to ask the contractor what kind of people he has working for him and how long they've worked for him. And if those people, or who exactly is going to be in that customer's home, if the employer is going to be there, or if it's just going to be the painters with the boss somewhere else.
And does someone from one of the Martins usually show up on site with the painter?
Typically on the start of any project, if we're not going to be there the whole time, we will be there to start the project and be there regularly to check on it. But most of the time, we're there all the time with our employees.
Well, that's an added benefit to have the expert on site the whole time.
We have found that if we're there, we have much better control over the job and the work that gets done. And we can take a much better we can take responsibility regardless.